Keith Olbermann, for those of you who don't know, he's a washed up MSNBC has been. He used to have a show called Countdown with Keith Olbermann. One of his big shticks was he would do the worst person in the world segment. And the worst person in the world segment would be he would take something generally out of context that a person said, uh, talk a bunch of shit about him, call him the worst person in the world. And then he ended his show by crumpling up a piece of paper in front of him, throwing it at the camera, or just throwing papers. He thought that that was funny. He was such a prima donna that they actually parted ways with him because of how abusive he was to his own staff. At least that's what the reports at the time said. There was all sorts of problems with Keith Olbermann. Now, maybe I'm not remembering that part correctly. It's been a long time because you just never hear anything from Keith Olbermann anymore, like ever. But anyway, that's who he is. And so, in a desperate bid for attention, he puts out "Burn in Hell, Charlie," alongside, and what does that say there?
Burn in Hell, Sinclair. Someone, Sinclair says, someone said, someone Sinclair he doesn't like, and it says Burn in Hell, Sinclair alongside Charlie
Kirk. Sorry,
Sinclair's the company.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you've got people are just sort of losing it at him, which is fair enough. I think.
Now, does anybody?
But I thought Matt Walsh's comment was good.
Can the chat remind me here? Because again, it's been a long time since I've even thought about any of these people. They were kind of big when I was in my 20s, and the legacy media was still really a thing. There was another network that had opened up, a radio network called Air America. Randy Rhoads was a person who was on Air America. No, I don't need glasses. It's just really small for me to read that. But anyway, it was called Air America. Did Keith Olbermann go to Air America with Randy Rhoads and the rest of those fucking weirdos? Does anybody remember? Maybe the chat can help me out with that. I just don't remember. But yeah, total fucking scumbag, universally hated, terrible debater, terrible takes. Everybody hated this guy. And in his bid for relevancy, he is, of course, going to take the most extreme position possible on this to try to draw attention to himself.
Matt Walsh says, Keith, you are already living in hell. Old, unemployed, irrelevant, fired from every job you ever had, unmarried and childless, spending your final years alone, shit posting into the void, begging to be noticed. When you die, you will leave behind no legacy and there will be nobody to mourn you or ever remember that you existed. Truly, I would rather be dead than live your life. I cannot imagine the misery that you feel every second of the day, and you deserve all of it. And Rach says, 911, I'd like to report a murder.
Yeah. So Walsh hitting him hard,
yeah,
right? Calling out the demon that he is, right? Imagine being so afflicted with demonosis that you go out of your way to say, well, Charlie Kirk needs to burn in hell along with, whoever Sinclair is. Is that Sinclair Media Group? Is that what they're referencing? Okay, gotcha. So this is Olbermann lashing out, trying to get some attention for himself, and Matt Walsh just completely blasts him, and it was hilarious.
Yeah. All right. The next big one that has happened over the past 24 hours is Jimmy Fallon. He may as well be Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Kimmel. Same guy anyway. Getting the ass from ABC. Here's what he said.
Got the ass, Jay.
Weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them, and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
So he starts the probably the second part of what he was doing there with the criticism of Trump. I think he probably would have gotten a pass on that. I
Mm.
think the idea that Trump wasn't grieving hard enough or this or that's a very common kind of attack that you would see from both sides. It's low tier, but I think he would have probably gotten a pass with that. It's that first part that got him. The first part, he's making the claim MAGA's trying to do everything possible to say that this kid was anything other than them.
Yep.
Well, the thing is that for people who hate misinformation, these people sure engage in an awful lot of it. It was not only very obvious that he was a leftist psychopath, but all the facts bore out that he was a leftist psychopath. They were trying to pin this on the right wing right from the beginning to kind of claim Charlie Kirk's radicalization of his own base. Ironically enough, it was his base who killed him. And that was what the narrative was that they were striving for. That is why there was suddenly a lot of pressure. And by the way, this is not the first time that Kimmel has been under fire on this network for comments that he's made, but it is the first time that there has been public outrage from the right, actually saying something about it and perhaps pushing this network to do something about it. What's really interesting is I see the left wingers right now talking about cancel culture and saying, well, you guys aren't going to like this when the pendulum swings back in power the other direction. But what's really funny there, and what I don't really understand that criticism, the left never stopped canceling the right. They've never stopped doing it. Why would we ever assume that because the right doesn't engage in saying, okay, if you're going to make these irresponsible claims, you also are at the mercy of getting fired by your employer? Why would that have stopped the left if we didn't do that? What would the left have just been like, you know what? They're all right. We're going to stop getting them fired from everything, deplatformed, debanked, dehumaned from there. And the right's not even doing that. The left was going back 10, 20 years to find things to cancel people with, still do it to this day, do everything they can to besmirch people's character. They can't help themselves. And they apply political pressure on banking institutions, apply political pressure on financial institutions to completely deperson an individual, completely deperson them. So ultimately, the thing here that's funny is like the right's not even engaging in cancel culture. All they're doing is saying, okay, do you really want this person to represent your company? The company says, nope, we don't. That's really not cancel culture. That's not what cancel culture ever was. But it's not like, even if it was, even if we granted it, why wouldn't we fight back with it? The left isn't going to stop just because we don't do shit. So it's really a useless criticism.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good point. I mean, they just never stopped doing it. Like they would do it at any chance that they get, really. So, why do we have to take the high ground? Why do we have to not celebrate about this? And especially when it's something like this, where in the wake of a murder, people are celebrating this murder, and people are, doing all sorts of horrendous and heinous things. Like when that guy came out and said that he was a fascist on Jubilee, right? When he said to Mehdi Hassan, he sort of just granted it. Yeah, I'm a fascist, whatever. That guy got fired from his job, and all he said was, it was like almost like maybe he is, but like it was like a tongue in cheek. It seemed to me like it was a tongue in cheek sort of like, yeah.
But
I am.
even if it wasn't, the message is very clear, right? The message is clear. There are social taboos that we as leftists refuse to put up with inside of society. And if you cross those social taboos, it's completely justified for us to remove you from any stage of being able to make money, support yourself, or anything else. You need to get punished. If that's the case, then you leave yourself at the mercy of the same thing. Okay, well, we as the right collectively say this is a social taboo. If you move outside the bounds of that social taboo, the same exact thing happens to you. The ironic thing, though, is that the right stops this tomorrow. If the left knocked it off, if the left had collective leadership that was like, look, enough of this is enough of this, right? You need to stop canceling people over their political viewpoints. We're not putting up with it anymore. The right would compromise immediately and be like, yeah, okay, we're totally right there with you. But they're not going to do that ever. And just because the right doesn't engage in it doesn't mean that the left won't keep engaging in it. So the only argument they have is, well, you're hypocrites because you don't let us do this bad thing to you anymore. That's it.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I remember we were talking about this not so long ago when we were saying, like, when the left have this sort of institutional power, they will rub Christians faces in the dirt. You know, they will go on live TV, they will mock Jesus Christ, they will do anything that they can really to try and rub our faces in it and to try and like humiliate us. So when we have the chance, a little bit of smugness, a little bit of gloating actually doesn't feel so bad, you know? It doesn't feel so bad.
Look, I'm not a big proponent. I don't like the fact, like, if I had the perfect world for Andrew Wilson, right? Jimmy Kimmel can say what the fuck he wants, okay? And he no matter how horrific or distasteful his fucking jokes are, I don't give a shit. I have the power to turn the channel and I don't care, right? Um, and in the perfect world too, guys on Main Street could talk about racial issues, and they could talk
Mm.
about trans issues. They could talk about their anti-LGBTQ views and immigration, and they wouldn't get canceled either. Both sides could say what they wanted, and they wouldn't have to worry about the repercussions of their income and this and that. It would be a level playing field in the arena of ideas. But that's not the world that we live in, and we have to get kind of this idea out of our heads that it is. It's not. That's a utopian ideal. The world that we live in, the left has been depersoning, debanking, and getting conservatives canceled from every form of media they possibly can in order to hurt them where it generally hurts the worst, which is in their wallet, killing any of their fundraising efforts for their ideas, killing any of their ability to speak their ideas to a mainstream audience, killing their ability to do that even when people want them to be doing that. They still go out of their way to do it. So, in many cases, this is fighting fire with fire. And yes, the left doesn't like it, but it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse on both sides. But just remember that ultimately it was out of our hands. If we did nothing, they would keep going. And if we do something, they'll keep going. So which one seems more plausible for political warfare?
Mm. All right. And speaking of the left and this particular topic, David Packman comes out and says one of the hallmarks of authoritarianism is to terrify people into self-censorship. ABC ending Kimmel's show is the perfect example of this. And then you said, LMFAO, if somebody made a joke about a person, a woman, the mentally handicapped, immigrants, Jewish people, Muslims, etc., this retard would be the first to scream, free speech has consequences. If you get to pick your social taboos, then so does the right.
Right. So the basic idea here is this. It used to be in media that people groups were made fun of all the time, especially in a comedic fashion. And people had a pretty good sense of humor about it. In fact, I think I would venture to say that it built camaraderie in many ways. So
Kings
you'll
of
hear
Comedy,
this.
Chris Rock,
Well,
Dave
and you'll also hear
Chappelle,
this from guys who are in the
South Park.
military, guys who have been in the military for a long time. They tend to tell stories about how the worst, most cutting ethnic blows that they could give to somebody was kind of like a rite of passage, a basic honor system. You know what I mean? Who could talk the most amount of shit was kind of heralded as being the king of the day.
Mm,
And the thing is like it does build camaraderie, and it also helps you to not have such a thin skin when it comes to
mm,
criticism. So when I was growing up, calling people dumb Polacks, that was totally fine, right? Polish people, and they thought it was funny. Calling Irish people drunks and Scottish people weird, like the list
mm.
goes on and on and on. And it was culturally acceptable, and people crack Jewish jokes all the time. You'd be in school, for instance, and you'd be like, "Hey, man, you got that dollar I gave you last week?" And they'd be like, "No," and you'd be like, "Oh, stop being such a Jew." That
Yeah,
was
dude, that was
fucking
like
common. That was
every second
common.
word was that in school for me. It was like, we didn't really know anything about Jews besides the fact that they're stingy because
Yeah,
of
that
these
was it.
jokes.
And it was common. People would say it all the time, right? And by the way, what would happen with the Jewish kids would always make fun of you back. They'd be like, well, maybe if you were better with your money, like our people are, you
Mm,
wouldn't be fucking begging for 50 cents in the lunch line, poor, right? That shit was fun, and it was funny, and it was a good way for people to have camaraderie. We didn't think of it as anti-Semitic, and neither did they. And they didn't think of it when they were hitting you back as you being the fucking goyim either.
mm,
And this destroyed all of that. The very idea of what they did with cancel culture destroyed one of the best things that created camaraderie between people, which is that we could barb each
dude.
other, and
Dude, it's
that
such a good
yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, like if you think about it, like the whole multicultural experiment, like now that you say that, like the only way that it works is if we can fucking rip each other.
Yeah.
If we can't rip each other, dude, multiculturalism can never work. And maybe there is a world in which we can all sort of live together and just fucking rip each other all the time and it'll work.
I mean, that's
Yeah,
how,
well, I
that's
mean,
how I
and-
bond with my friends.
Yeah,
You
and this
fucking
was common. And
retards.
by the way, if
Yeah.
you snitched about it, you were a bitch. You were, you know, you were a dumb bag. You were a fucking loser. You know what I mean? You fucking little bitch. You're not allowed to snitch because somebody called you a bad name. You know what I mean? We called all the fat kids fat and they would laugh. You know what I mean? And they would talk shit back. It was not just a rite of passage, but it was an idea. The social ribbing created a sense of camaraderie and it helped with social skills, unique social skills, which is that life is hard. You're under pressure a lot. You know what I mean? And there's going to be people who say really bad things about you, true and untrue. And the reason so many people have so many freak out sessions these days about that is because they never went through any of that. So as an adult, they're coming into contact with people who say mean things to them and they can't take it. They crumble. You know what I mean? And suddenly it's on par with you're Adolf Hitler himself. You just you just told that guy to stop being so Jewish with his money. You're Adolf Hitler. And it's like, no, man, that's not what's going on here. I think you're blowing it a little bit way out of proportion here. Okay. I think that was very common and nobody was getting upset about it at all. You know, they'd get upset maybe in the moment a little bit, but it was not a huge deal. And now it has become that. And now people are getting debanked, depersoned, and that's been going on for many years where right-wingers can't even get loans. They can't get banks to deal with them. They can't get financing for various things because they're on special lists that are invisible to the rest of the public through finance companies where they're persona non grata. And so if that's the case, the right's just saying, okay, well, let's see how you like it back. Well, they don't seem to like it very much. And it's like, so how do you get this to stop other than fighting fire with fire? I have no idea.
Dude, imagine if every time we made fun of Mr. E because he's a Jew and he's like one of those rare species that's a Jew and he got all pissed off about it. Imagine if
I'm gonna call your
Mr. E
boss
got all
and get you
pissed off.
fired, Jake.
Shut up, Jew, Mr. E.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. And the thing is funny is like, there's plenty of Jewish people who watch the Crucible. There's plenty of minorities who watch the Crucible. There's plenty of white people who watch the Crucible, right? And I think that one of the reasons is because they still like that atmosphere. Not all, most, in fact, most, it's not even not all. Most people understand that's how it is, and they don't get upset about it, dude.
One of those chatters said, "Is Mr. E a blue?"
A blue?
Jew.
Oh my god, dude.
Yo, I don't know what the fuck you be talking about, oy vey.
Bro.
All right, we're having a serious conversation. All right.
Shit,
what's this
Shit.
Shit, brother Andrew with his cigarettes.
Imagine Mr. E just turned his camera on. He was really, dude. Nah. Impossible.
Like this guy is.
All right. What is this? Chris Hayes.
You don't know who Chris Hayes is?
Looks like your pretentious fucking uncle.
No. You have to understand that's the twin sister of Rachel Maddow.
Yo, I was gonna make the same joke. Because he's the female version of Rachel
that is
Maddow.
the twin sister of Rachel Maddow. You have to understand. I think he also, I don't remember if he was CNN or MSNBC, which one he was with as a commentator, but he was either with the Communist News Network or Crescent News Network, CNN, or I don't remember which, but he was a very popular political commentator for a while with the legacy media, always bashing, again, like most of those political pundits did, on the right, incessantly about the right, and that's it. Very rarely brought on, by the way, right-wing guests to even defend themselves. Very rarely do this. They just talk shit to pictures of them. That's what they did for years.
So this is his reaction on the left to Jimmy Kimmel and then juxtaposed with his Tucker reaction.
ABC made the announcement Kimmel would indeed be taken off the air indefinitely. And this is just the latest chapter in Donald Trump's ongoing campaign to crack down on free speech, dominate the media, and essentially render the First Amendment meaningless. So it was for the journeyman cable news host Tucker Carlson, just fired from his third network. He believed he could say anything, no matter how vile, no matter how disgusting, no matter how offensive, no matter how dehumanizing or belittling. And if you act like a sociopath over and over and over and over, you will become unpopular on the national stage. That's just like a basic principle. Over time, probably not going to work out well for you in the long run. Eventually, people will be rightly offended, disgusted by it. ABC made the
Now,
glowing. He's glowing about Tucker.
Yeah, and let's also point out the fact that besides the immediate knee-jerk reaction of hypocrisy, which is, of course, what is trying to be pointed out here, is the circumstances here with Carlson. He's simply pointing out that if you are a bad guy, public sentiment's going to turn against you, and this is what you should expect. And yet, when it comes to Kimmel, public sentiment turns against him, but that's not what he should expect. Isn't it ironic more than anything? But let's also point this out, that the guy he's trying to lambast there, Tucker Carlson, has gone on to be a massive figurehead of right-wing politics and a household name worldwide, and one of the richest, most successful political pundits who's ever lived. Chris Hayes is where? He's nowhere.
Yeah.
He's nowhere.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, by the way, I just want to point out that I've always suspected that 90% of the cancel culture, which is driven by left-wing punditry and talking heads, is due to sheer jealousy, because they're unentertaining and highly educated. And they believe that due to their education, they should be taken seriously, and other people should not be, who are much more entertaining than they are with the facts that they present. And I've always thought that jealousy had a major component role in this.
Yeah, 100%, dude. Have you seen what fucking Don Lemon has been up to? Like, it's actually astounding when you look at it, because he was the big guy at CNN. He goes on to do his YouTube channel. Elon Musk offers him a spot on X, and I call him Diva Don. Diva Don says to him, you need to fly me out on private. You need to pay me X amount of money. You need to have me and my gay boyfriend get us massages, put us up in 5-star hotels, making all these demands of Elon. And Elon says, actually, you know what? Don't worry about it. I don't want to work with you. You seem like a bit of a diva. Pies him off. And then Don Lemon's like, okay, I'll go do my own thing. Dude, if you look at his numbers on YouTube, like, he never cracks 100,000 on any videos ever.
Mm-hmm.
He's like irrelevant. He's begging people for interviews, doing man on the street interviews, and begging basketballers behind the red line and stuff. It's crazy.
Well, you have to understand that these networks artificially prop these people up. They came with very, very high senses of pedigree. Most of them had family in media. Rachel Maddow, for instance, I believe was a Rhodes Scholar, and she came highly recommended as an academic. What these media companies wanted to do, especially the left-leaning media companies, they thought they would be able to overwhelm the American public with pedigree. They thought if we have a very, very high, sophisticated class of political pundits who are highly educated by whatever standard they thought that was, usually Ivy League schools or various things like this, that they will overwhelm the American public with their kind of, pedigree, and that their education would be able to relay these complex messages in such a sophisticated way that Americans would just fall in love. And the opposite happened. Actually, there was a backlash. What happened is they were unable to frame their message in any way that the common man could relate to them at all. And not only that, they thought that the American people were really stupid, and that if they used a bunch of academic doublespeak, that the electrician on the street wouldn't be able to listen to it and decipher the bullshit, and they did very easily. The reason that Fox News, on the other hand, was so successful is because they said, well, let's put guys in who were construction workers like Sean Hannity, and let's put people in.
Was he construction?
Yeah, he was a construction worker. He started as a construction worker with a $500 car. They were trying to put more people in who could connect easier with the audience. And then they would also put in their blonde bombshell bimbos with big boobs, right? So the idea here was you get a big show right? Something nice to look at. And then you'll have people who can relay the messaging in a way that the kind of common man will relate to and connect with.
Mm.
And that
And
formula
titties.
was a big winner. Well,
Mm.
think about this. Imagine having billionaire backers with these high academic pedigrees, uh, funneling, hundreds of millions of dollars to your network to get these people these multi-million-dollar contracts, and you get your ass kicked by political pundits, many of them who only have a high school education
Mm.
and a couple of blonde chicks with big boobs, because that is 10 times more relatable to the American public than these fucking glasses wearing dorks who have never been able to relay a competent message in their life in a way that's relatable to anybody ever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was the difference. And so the seething jealousy is 95% of this has always been about seething jealousy.
Yeah, dude. These people who are like the Ivy League elites, they think that they should run the world. They think that they should be in charge. They think that they should be the authority on everything. And it's like, yeah, like Chris
Well,
Hayes.
it's
How are
not
you
just
going to look
that.
like? He looks like a fag and a lesbian at the same time.
When
I
the
don't know how he's done that.
when the blood sport debate era really started to kick off around 2018, and just before that, when it was verging in 2017, leading into 2020, a lot of these academics got put to the question by commoners. They were willing to go and start actually doing IRL engagements and engaging in debates with people who were supposedly far less educated than them, and they got trounced. I
Mm.
mean, brutally trounced at every turn, and kind of the mask fell off, right? That
That's
if you're
beautiful.
outside of the echo chamber, you can't even contain the worldview. It just falls apart the second it's under scrutiny. So these people lost their edge in almost every single aspect of what it was that they were trying to accomplish, and that's why the legacy media has died. I mean, it's dead. It's not that it's still alive and kicking a little bit, you know what I mean? It's going to make a comeback. It is fucking dead.